Check. Sorry about that, guys. My mic was off. Dr. Kevin Mccairn will be joining me momentarily. We're going to be discussing Fauci. In the meanwhile, I'll get set up. So I saw some people joined. Dr. Kevin Mccairn is going to be joining me very soon. In the meanwhile, I have to go grab a water. Give me a sec. So we are going to be discussing Fauci. Yes, that guy. You know who it is. The usual suspect. And joining me live from Japan is Dr. Kevin Mccairn. Yes, sir, I can hear you. How are you doing in Japan, Dr. Mccairn?
I've just been prevaricating about going to sleep for 3 hours, but I'm glad I didn't, because I think what we're seeing right now is a very substantial move on behalf of by the president right now. And I would add, and I only caught a bit of the news transcript. I'm hoping you're going to be able to pull it up, but it sounded to me like he was asking the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Miley, to investigate Mike Fauci. If that's
Tony
the
Fauci,
case,
you mean?
yeah, sorry, Mike Miley is after Dr. Fauci, Tony Fauci. So that's potentially very explosive information. And you know what I want to do, dude? I just want to see if I can fire up my OBS without it breaking anything. Let me just see if it does that. If I cut out, I'll call straight back in and just.
Okay, I think we should be fine. You know what the best spot is going to be for this, Doc, is probably Twitter.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking right now. What we do is we just start pinging and hacking the matrix right now, just trying to get as much out there as we can, and just get people on that can speak intelligently to it.
Yeah, for
And
sure. And you're gonna dual stream? Is that what you're trying to do right now to your channel?
yeah, so it's just going in. You're a little loud, my end apparently, but can you speak a little bit? Oh, I
Check,
think that
check,
might.
mic check.
Yeah, I think you're a little. Do it again.
So we are live. This is Atticus Skywalker, YouTube's chosen one. Addy Ads live with Dr. Kevin W. Mccairn, PhD,
Okay, yeah.
Kyoto University by way of England. He's broadcasting live from Japan right now. How do we sound here, Kev?
We're looking good, dude. So I think the first thing to do is let's pin down the actual news, the press briefing by Donald Trump, and I saw that it said 5:11 on the timestamp, and I guess it's today, and everything should be just lit up with Fauci's name, I would imagine. So we need to pull up the press conference, a recording of it, and we need to skip to the relevant parts because well, there's a number of issues. So obviously people are going to be this is where you're going to get into more chaos, and people are going to keep jumping around, and as much as the sort of the people like us that are trying to stream, and they're all going to try and get sort of messages out. And the thing that I'm worried about is, so immediately the thing I saw were people that were their 5G proponents. Let's just call them that for now. And in taking those positions and sort of coming after in a sort of public lynch mob for Fauci is they'll be able to sort of dismiss a lot of the sort of public hysteria about it, because these people will be so glommed onto either like the anti-vaccination bandwagon or the anti-5G wagon, and the that has potentials to just sort of skew the dialogue, I would imagine. And like I say, it's been a while since I lived in the US, but I do remember how partisan it was, and it seems even more so if you ask me right now. So
Yeah, I
so
agree.
so I don't know if you're getting links. I'm just trying to. I'm
Yeah,
just.
I am on. So it was from this morning, right, Doc?
I don't know, because I mean, like for
Oh,
me,
okay.
this is my morning. It's early morning for me, and
Okay, well, I'm on ABC's live stream today that they're doing. Oh, I suppose no, it would be the White House one, right? The White House briefing.
yeah, and so anything that I'm just looking at him, because that's someone. I think it was Babu in my Discord. So we were getting a little
Okay,
a little heated in our discussion, but
here, let me share
shout out.
my screen.
Uh, let's see. So there's Ali, and like I say, we're both. Like I say, I think it should just try and go out to as many people as possible. And let me just check my stream. And so the words that I saw were that basically a young female reporter had asked the president, and apparently they were just discussing it that morning. I mean, to me, that's it would be disturbing to me that it had taken this long to sort of percolate up through the systems, that something of this sort of magnitude had not been on the radar beforehand. And I don't know how much of that comes down to Dr. Fauci's ability to sort of keep attention directed where he needs it, to the to basically just the sluggishness of government in general. And in my mind, the well, you know, the how do we use this situation to our advantage to make sure that people are getting. I think there's a genuine call for justice to be called for, especially if there was a moratorium in place that caused Fauci's department to have the research offshored. Okay, so I mean, I have to presume that somewhere, because we don't know what those papers look like prior to and this was the Obama administration that did this, and there's a strong argument for. Oh, I've got. Wait.
Keep going, Kevin.
Yeah. So I have to presume that somewhere there was a minutes of a meeting taken where the decision was taken to suspend research in that sphere, and particularly research to do with coronaviruses and SARS. I think it more instructive to just speak about SARS, because coronaviruses are a broad, very, very broad definition. We need to say SARS, and a brief history and timeline is that in 2002 to 2003 in Guangdong province in China, the first case of SARS arose, and I want to say that sort of grumbled on for quite some time, and I actually think the death toll wasn't insignificant, and the rate of fatality was high, and from then I guess that there was a lot of combined research, because we know that I was speaking earlier about the primate research that's been done, and so we know that those viruses were being passaged through primate colonies, whether in China, in the Netherlands, and in the US. I can't speak to the US status, but I would imagine that Fort Detrick must have a primate colony. I would be surprised if they didn't, but
I would be surprised as well. And that's what you're talking about as it pertains to this testing in SARS specifically, aren't you, Kevin? Just the monkey testing in particular.
Yeah.
And just to hammer a point home, what you said earlier. So SARS is a coronavirus, but it's coronavirus as a broader a broader categorization. Is that accurate to say?
Yes. Yeah.
So SARS is the more specific categorization of viruses.
Yeah. So you can have and like I say, I'm not a virologist, so any virologists that are listening to this and catch this stream should please forgive me for the butchering I'm going to do to your discipline, but coronaviruses were known for a long time just to be associated with colds and flu, and I think they were just generally considered benign. Every animal, as far as I'm aware, they're embedded in their physiology and their ecosystems, and and for some reason, and we have to be careful about pointing fingers here, because as much as the Faucis of this world maybe going to get what's coming to them, the thing to keep in mind is that the Chinese did this as well, right? We're not alone in or no one's blameless, right? But if the Chinese, okay, in application for an R01 NIH grant, okay, you have to, there's pages and pages and pages, okay, of paperwork that you have to fill out that will that says that your facility is good enough for doing the research, that you're complying with what they consider to be proper ethical standards, okay? But that's a case of sort of wink, wink,
terms of agreement, kind of.
Oh yeah, there has to be a terms of agreement, and so this is where we have to get into who the MPO is that acted as the intermediary here. So
and what's an MPO, Kevin?
So it's a non-profit organization. So the Eco Health Alliance is the organization that was responsible for, I guess, acting as the interface between the NIH and the Chinese government, and basically saying that everything's okay. So if I don't know if they're, let me just try and find the links. And you get apologies to everyone because this is sort of off,
Yeah, we are going off the cuff here, people. Kevin hit me up, and as you know, we want to do updates more often. I think it seems like people are liking that, and we were kind of focusing on Fauci and discussing Fauci because Kevin found out, as it were, from the briefing this morning, which is it's officially almost afternoon on the West Coast, 11:59 here.
Yeah, so we're late.
That Millie is basically, how would you say, Kevin, as it pertains to Fauci?
So my understanding was, if we can get a sort of breakdown of the press conference. So a young lady, I don't know the reporter, asked Fauci, asked the president about the $3.7 million grant that had been paid out to the Wuhan lab and Lin Chi's bat project, the Bat Lady, for want of a better vernacular, and the
Hey, Kev, what's your Twitter again?
It's, I'll just put it in the Discord. Hang on a minute.
I need to just pull that up.
Yeah.
I have it on because it's on my phone. Your Discord's on my phone, Kevin, and it blows up all the time.
I can just type it in our private chat.
Okay, no, I'm pulling it up my Discord right now.
Okay.
I only have recently started using it, basically because of this pandemic. I started using it, but so I don't always have it running in the background, but I should. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
I don't, to tell the truth. I mean, I've only started using it because of this this current situation as it's sort of evolved, and I was, I felt like I was one of the first to sort of be popping my head up. Obviously Paul as well was one of the first, and I think Jonathan as well did. He's done a good job, and but there seems to have been a significant, conspicuous by its absence, lack of individuals standing up for the public. So that's what it is. The public that needs to know these things, and we should have been able to put more pressure on more early, and it shouldn't have required a pandemic sweeping out of control in order to get to this point where it's come down to vloggers and semi-retired injured scientists, and Paul's basically, I guess, out for his intellectual curiosities, what was thinking of pursuing
yeah, and just to hear from Jay about the fact that all those people in the micro and neurobio community were so excited to help, and they all pretty much just got shut down right away.
And this is part of the problem, and that comes up in the press conference as I sort of started watching it, and apparently the testing is there, but there seem to be blocks within the system as regards the American side of it, as to how to best move on from. So now the curves are flattening a little bit, which is good news. And so those that were saying we shouldn't lock down, I would say, look, that's, we are getting a grip of stuff now. And so we could be preventing the worst case scenarios if we just let this thing burn like a uncontrolled fire. And so now we're at a point where what you're going to see is you're going to see those people that want to move up the greasy pole, right? And this is what I've spoken about before. And there will be people that have vendettas against people like Fauci. You know, he's been in dereliction of duty, and and as a consequence, he should be on the hook somewhat. And you know, I don't want to condemn a man without proper investigation, but it's public record that even while the grant was being administered, there were 2 inspections that were not satisfactory, and I guess that's why the R01 was terminated, because and I'm guessing those 2 so when did I need to find the link for the page where we can get the details, and I know it's in my Discord, but it's going to take me a while.
Yeah, so I actually got the link, I think, for the video you're talking about, Kevin. It looks like it has some commentary over it, but shout out to Paula for sending the link. You can play it back, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if you might get a bit funny or not about copyright. I don't know, but maybe just pause it now.
I don't even know how that works, to be honest.
But where is that link? So yeah, maybe play that just so we've got what I find the link for.
I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the output on my speaker so people can hear better.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Let me try and find. I want to find the
level 4 lab.
Oh, whoops. It's got a 21, right?
Mr. President, U.S. intelligence is saying this week that the coronavirus likely came from a level 4 lab in Wuhan. There's also another report that the NIH, under the Obama administration in 2015, gave that lab $3.7 million in a grant. Why would the U.S. give a grant like that to China?
The Obama administration gave them a grant of $3.7 million. I've been hearing about that. And we've instructed that if any grants are going to that area, we're looking at it literally about an hour ago, and also early in the morning.
So I just pause. Can you pause there, Addy?
Grant very quick.
Can you pause?
Yeah. What you got, Kevin?
So that was what I was speaking about earlier, and this to me, I'm a bit incredulous to that statement that they just found out about it this morning. Okay, this is bizarre to me, and if the country is in such a state, or that there was so much interference run that something like this took so long to come to the surface, it was very, very poor. It's a poor look for all departments involved, whichever situation they're under. But you should play those clips, because I'm pretty sure he says in that, as soon as I heard Chief of Staff, and he doesn't say General Mike Miley, he says Chief of Staff, and he calls him Mike, basically, I think, and he speaks to him in sort of a very informal manner. But I'm like, okay, that sounded like Mike, General Mike Miley. I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
I think it's
Millie.
Yeah.
And good. That's what I was saying needed to happen, right? Because on August the 4th, the General Mike Milley stood in front of the nation, and he basically invoked war powers. Okay, and those war powers, okay, it seemed a bit sort of nebulous, saying we're going to war against
the Mexican drug cartels.
Well, it wasn't so much that. He said the virus. He said to those that thinking that they could take advantage while they think that the US might have their eye off the ball. And what I would do is I would pull people's mind back a little further to the fentanyl bust in November in Ohio.
Yeah,
and
we did talk about that.
Yeah, we have talked about that previously, and basically the response from the officials in Washington were that that's tantamount to chemical warfare, because of the amount of people that could be harmed by, it was a significant amount. And the
Well, let's continue this video.
Yeah. So I think the Mike Mighty bit is
But
important.
it was granted quite a while ago. They were granted a substantial amount of money. We're going to look at it and take a look, but I understand it was a number of years ago. Right?
So
When did you hear? When did you hear the grant was made?
2015.
2015. Who was president then? I wonder.
So this is
Who is president then? I wonder.
Q.
It's funny. Well, I don't want to steal this dude's commentary. That's what we're here for. I don't even know who this guy is, but
I don't. So stop here, right? So this is where we're going to have a problem, and this is what we need to contain as sort of, if we're coming at this from sort of citizen perspective. So that Dr. Babu, who I started to call out yesterday, is he's a 5G crank, basically. And
what is a crank, Kevin?
So he's basically saying that 5G is causing massive harm, and it's tied into the development or the expression of the virus. And it's people like that are going to cause a massive rupture within any sort of disciplinary approach that we can take with organizations that have their fingers with respect to the grant that the NIH had awarded to the Wuhan Institute. So this is put it up on the thing. So it's
Why, that's not right, is it?
no, I mean it has a more sort of negative connotation where I come from. It's like crazy. There you go, crazy. A crazy person, especially someone who purports to be a scientist or inventor, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got someone, look, and that Dr. Babu is not an Andrew Kaufman, right? It's not at that level of stupidity or interference. He's been pretty direct with calling people out with respect to the issues around the NIH and the Department of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which is Fauci's department. He has a desk at Fort Detrick, and
Fauci does.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Wow.
And well, saying a desk is just it's more administrative than anything. I would argue, but
those are the positions of power.
yeah, and so it grants a lot of access, and the like I said earlier, that what you have to watch for now is the people that are going to try get in and throw up chaff and try to spoof our homing in on these people so we can get the proper picture of what's going on.
Do you see this comment on screen, Kevin? It says from Paula.
Oh yeah, that I have no doubt, right? So once a moratorium is put in place, okay, that means that they're not supposed to be doing that type of research. So any type of whatever it is, right? So what could be considered dual use or gain of function use, if they've said stop, then I'm presuming, well, but there's going to be gray areas here, right? So within the sort of process of doing a offshore R01 grant, so something like, so this is where Eco Health Alliance comes in, and so this, I'm going to bring up the record of the grant itself. So first issue date is 2014. The recipient name, right? So that's why I'm saying, right, all eyes need to go straight to Eco Health Alliance, and there should be police officers at that office right now to stop them shredding anything and pulling any hard drives out, right? Because these people have been the intermediary. These people will have filled out the grant work. These people will have acted as a kind of guarantor for a probably substantial fee. And the I have last night's title up. Yeah, I'm sorry if I have last night's title up, everyone. I'm just trying to get, like, literally, I just saw this flash up, and then I needed someone to talk to, so I contacted Addy. I went and splashed my face with water because I was sort of half asleep. I've left my daughter asleep on the sofa downstairs, and I've basically ran upstairs to sort of get this out, because we need to act rapidly, because many people have been speaking about this this issue, and the what I'm worried about is you're going to get the anti-vaxxers and the 5G weirdos jumping in and inhibiting us from being able to there's a funny picture put in my
in the Discord.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get that on screen, dude. But let me just try.
Oh, yeah, I can do it. Hold on.
Change the title of this. So you know, and let us not forget, right, that okay, it's all right to turn the cannon on ourselves if we think there's a rat, and there is, but let's not forget this was all done hand in hand with China. And you know what? I wouldn't put it past the Chinese to just be pissed at them not receiving the funding. You know, just letting things slip a little, so they the WHO said they don't that many don't seroconvert. So how does that work with vaccines? I don't know. Like, this is the thing. I'm against the idea of mass vaccination for things like this. It should be used if necessary. So if you're in some sort of essential position, but that needs to be looked at very, very carefully right now, because we're already seeing that there's people sort of positioning themselves to make sure that they get this next market. Okay, and people need to be aware of how these people work with respect to those markets. So, like I said, we've already seen China force its population back to work, and we don't know how well they've contained the disease itself. Right? It's
Yeah, we don't. And I mean, we know they're lying about their numbers, especially given how many people they have in their country.
Yeah,
over a billion, 1.3 billion, I think.
It's more, I think.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, what is it like where you're at, Kevin, in terms of tourists? Because when I lived in Japan, Chinese tourists, I mean, it's just they come all the time, and yeah, they have a certain reputation, don't they?
It's collapsed basically, yeah. And you know you've got your Discord going in the background, I think.
Oh yeah, my bad.
You know, the Japanese grumble about the Chinese when they're here, and now they're all pissy that they're not here, right? And let me just do this title. So the Japanese are difficult, fickle individuals to deal with, and it's Anthony, right? I'm not going to. So I just put Dr. A. Fauci.
That is a pretty great work of art. I don't know who made that. One of your followers there, Kevin?
I think so, but whoever did it, that's UPSY.
That coronavirus is getting sliced in half by a samurai who's wearing a mask. That's great.
Yeah, it's really good. If we can get that sort of larger on the, well, I mean, probably the way I'm looking at it is small.
Okay, yeah. I think it's smaller on your broadcast. Let me see. Oh yeah, I'm on yours now.
Yeah, so,
oh, you got the Eco Health Alliance pulled up too there.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, people, nail these people, nail this NPO, right?
Yeah. Do you want to send that in the chat there, Kevin?
Yeah. Let me just go. I'll get the homepage, but they might look all nice and friendly on the outside, but these people are. It's a money-making game. It's a prestige-making game. And I put that in Discord. And,
thanks to Jigaman for sharing the link. Just a quick shout out to people.
Oh yeah,
Edward King checking in, and then Paula with the links and the info too. Gary Ferenki. You know who this is, Kevin?
I'd have to look at the name.
Okay.
Can we say Donald is pissed? He's pretty pissed, right? I'll say POTUS angry. That's.
So, do you think that Fauci is losing credit in the eyes of the public at large?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's no coming back from this. And like I was saying before, there has to be some consequences. You can't just keep letting this stuff carry on, because what happens is that people just no longer trust anything, right? So that's the issue that we're dealing right now with.
Yeah, we're heading towards anarchy.
Yes, very much, and that's why I'm trying the best that I can to sort of come down against these people that are shouting about 5G or there not being any viruses. And on a normal rainy Tuesday or Monday now, sorry, it's Monday, sorry, not Tuesday. I would be happy to sort of entertain those ideas and work through them and sort of game theory them and just see where you go with them. I like doing that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's fun.
And yeah, and and of course we should do that, and of course we should always be testing technologies that are being rolled out en masse to the public. And let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that pretty much of the world was on the hook to Hawaii for their 5G infrastructure, right? It was the current president who put a stop to that, right? Because as you might want to just bring that up, but
yeah, I don't know anything about that, Kev, but yeah, continue.
Yes, so a lot of the 5G infrastructure was coming from China. I know that, especially for the UK and Europe. I want to say for the US as well. And the current state is that we should be very, very suspicious of handing over keys to the kingdom. This is precisely what I was talking about earlier, when we just surrendered the strategic advantage we had with decades of primate research because we couldn't handle school kids whining at us, right?
And Eric Weinstein talks about this too. He says in his opinion that the comparative advantage for the United States is our science and technology.
Yes, yeah, very much so. And if you surrender that technical component to people that are not averse to just using their population as a slave force,
yeah,
right? That's what the Chinese do. And not only that, they'll mass incarcerate people, right? So look at the Uyghurs, and there's the Falun Gong that I can just off the top of my head straight away. Tibet, right? The Chinese suppress dissent massively. Okay, Hong Kong. Okay, all are examples of where and Hong Kong they were treating with a velvet glove because it's a sort of international hub, right? And what was sort of interesting, and I don't want to spin off into the conspiratorial because we've already got enough to be getting on with respect to just the headlines in the news. But there was I don't know, one of those sort of little 5-minute clips of propaganda, but basically, and I don't know how true it is, but basically it was saying that Wuhan it sits in the middle of China, Hubei province, and yet the illness seems to be confined to there, yet it's taken over the rest of the world, yet Shanghai remains open, Peking remains open. We were looking at that researcher this morning who got chased out of Germany and is on his way to, transplanting his lab to China right now. I would say that would be a bad move on his part. I would be pulling out straight away if that was me.
I heard this idea that the Chinese kept it in Wuhan, but they didn't keep it from the rest of the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
you think they did keep it in Wuhan more or less?
I'm guessing so. And this is as and this plays very poorly on the Japanese authorities as well, because they told us that they were stopping people coming from China. They were restricting flights, but actually it was just flights from Hubei. Flights were still coming in from the rest of China.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they've been doing because it's a dual use program. And we know that within sort of days of it breaking and them being unable to contain the outbreak in China itself, that they would that they pushed in the military. The head of, I can't remember the general's name, but the head of whatever in their military wing went into the Wuhan Institute basically to scrub records, I would imagine, because people are going to start wanting to get an accounting. And as of right now, Britain, Germany, and I want to say France, they've all petitioned or they're all billing the Chinese, and they're talking billions and billions of dollars in damages, right? So it's this kind of thing which lines up everyone to just get into a good old free for all, and the bullets will start flying, and Europe's fatalities past 100,000. I just saw that out the corner of my eye. And how many deaths did the Chinese report? 3,000? Right?
Yeah, right.
So there's
and I don't, I'm laughing at the absurdity of the lie, of course.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to just see if there's anything in sort of press that sort of looks like, or mainstream press that sort of summarizes the disturbing to every American. Navarro says China hid virus from world. So this is another thing that I've sort of. So this is you should speak to Master and Commander Frank about this, but just he understands the dynamic of Navarro in this whole situation. The death by China, and this is a trade war, and it seems to be getting very, very hot, and potentially there's been bioweapons involved, and at this stage it would be naive to just think that it's a natural zoonosis from rats, especially.
Wow, we are kicking ass right now. Look at this.
Yeah, it's those numbers are climbing, and just for comparison, just a few weeks ago, look at China, right? If you wind that sort of clock back, right, and so in that consequence, people then start to say, well, who do we point the finger at? So yeah, okay, I'm happy to point the finger at the corrupt politicians who sort of enabled this kind of thing to happen. But you know what? The Chinese can do one as well, right? And and I don't say that lightly, because I'm sitting here right on the front line waiting for it, right? And there's a billion Chinese just a couple of 100 miles away from me, right? More. And there's a lot of people that stand to benefit from the chaos as it sort of as it unfolds. But I want to find more with respect to Fauci. Do you have more coming from that link that was put in the of that press conference? Because I want let's
it was a
find...
longer video. Give me a second. Yeah, because we're just about to hear from the doctors.
So that was a very public hoisting of Dr. Fauci, and
Hoisting.
Yeah, they've just said, okay, you're done, dude. That's how I would take that if that was my job.
You think so? They want his resignation now?
Not he'll be put under administrative leave right now as they sort of gather their things for investigation, and I'm betting that there will be some sort of back and forth with respect to what's going on. No doubt Fauci has dirt on people that he'll use to try and wiggle his way out of something, anything that sort of rolls downhill towards him. And the consequences of it sort of spiraling out of control just locally could get quite nasty, right? Because you don't know what Fauci could be standing there with the dead man switch in his in his jacket pocket, right? Because he has access to Fort Detrick, right? And he could have a crushable vial of something in there, right? That as they sort of called him out, he's gone and crushed it, contaminated everywhere, and you might see something nastier now. That's the level you're playing at with these people. And or it could be that he struck a plea deal and they're trying to get things under. You don't know what's happening, but they have to be held accountable. That's the critical thing. And what we have to stop is 5G grifters. So notice this individual on your screen, Babu. What's behind him?
Let's play this.
Okay.
Talking about is the moratorium that was placed, and then $3.7 million from the National Institute of Health was transferred to China so they could continue this research, even though the moratorium. So they basically outsourced this research to China. Is this the same topic we're talking about here? This news is just breaking?
Yes, this is exactly right. So it goes back to 2014. The U.S. government decided, based upon certain virologists at that time, saying that, look, there's no justification for this kind of research. There's a potential for it to cause harm, cause a pandemic. So there's no justification for us to do this type of research. So the government passed a moratorium in 2014. Fauci approved approved budgets to be monies to be section for this type of research. So basically, and I'm getting really, every time I think about this, it gets me really flustered because I'm so angry that he basically broke the law. He more than broke the law. He created this entire cascade that we're seeing with the world shutdown was created by this initial aspect back in 2015. He broke the law. He went against government moratoriums. He took taxpayer money and he funded research that has now led to the COVID-19. In 2017,
I would just tone him down a bit, because this is what I worry about, is that his voice is being amplified because he latched on to the 5G
Like just
opposition.
political topic in terms of because it's so salient right now?
I'd never heard of him before, and so basically, as I was nailing the Andrew Kaufman for his saying that there's no such thing as a virus, people were saying to me, "Well, wait till you come up against this guy, and he'll the words were sort of curb stomp me into the ground," and so I started to look into what he was doing, and actually, my first sort of impression was, "Oh, he sounds pretty reasonable." He knew about what we've spoken about before, which is the funding of the Wuhan laboratory. He hasn't really sort of brought up the MPOs, but he's going on a tear because he's digging for fame right now. He's grifting for fame, I should say, and he's got all his books behind him.
Just like me. Except I actually don't have them all behind me. I'm somewhere in Europe right now.
Oh, okay. But what's going to happen, right, is that because we think we've got hold of something in the US and we've got a handle on something to sort of maybe make the president look bad in some aspect, and I think it's well played by the president to make this out in public, this as this is unfolding, and not doing it behind the scenes. But I think the important thing as well is to as we're cleaning house, don't forget the Chinese, right? And if you let people that keep going on about 5G non-stop, and people who keep going on about vaccines, then you're going to allow people that really do have your they don't have your health in mind, okay? The Chinese, okay? That you're either a customer to them or a enemy to them. And hang on a second.
So this is kind of interesting right here, Kevin, the way they are organizing the deaths. So it says total deaths, and it's by country, but not for the United States. They're doing it according to, well, this is just New York City. And then they're doing states. So this is New York, a county in New York, Nassau County, Wayne, Michigan. I don't know. I don't know why they just don't add them all up and put them as the United States. See, look,
I think if you go to Worldometer, so if you go to Worldometer, you can do it by
okay,
country.
that was the one that I have preferred using, and just the way you can kind of see it mapped out here. Let's see.
So you can just go to countries and look, let's just hold that there. So as that Babu is going to start trying to grift and make his name on being the one that's calling out Fauci. A month ago, he was saying, look at these numbers. It's what the government is doing. It's criminal what they're doing. It doesn't make sense. And the real issue is not the SARS virus. It's 5G. Right. And so in that respect, he should not be let off the hook right now. Great that he's calling out the deep state elements. But the issue right now is that we don't want to let our eyes off the fact that the Chinese, we gave them the money, but they still did the research. So the scientists still need to be held accountable. The institute still needs to be held accountable because, look, I do tiny science compared to what they do, okay, or did. And, I can't, I would only dream of like that one grant that they had would have funded me my entire life, right? For the sort of costs I have. And I was probably just as productive as they were. And mine actually went to help people rather than find ways to develop gain of function research. And so we shouldn't forget that the Chinese were happy to take the money from the United States, and they were also happy to do gain of function research. Okay, so yes, we should be holding them responsible. Let me just check this link. Oh, this looks gross.
I'm interested in Sweden.
Oh yeah, they're regretting their decision right now.
Yeah, looks like they got.
All their old people are dying in the homes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at their total deaths. They have more total deaths than. Look at that. All of those: Japan, South Korea, Chile, Ireland combined.
Yeah, and it's just ramping up in Sweden, and they've just made the whole situation worse for everyone because they didn't do social isolation.
They didn't do anything.
No. The idea was to do herd immunity, and in doing herd immunity, they've exposed everyone. And look, I've said in the past that you want to be aiming for herd immunity in a way that you've got to live alongside this agent, right? You can't just be reliant on chloroquine from Teva or Plaquenil from Sanofi Aventis. Okay, the the usual scheme of things is that you adapt or you co-evolve with pathogens, and that's why when they said when Fauci is saying that they've got a paper that shows that there's a logical progression from the bat to the human with respect to a zoonosis. This is precisely what Jonathan was talking about when he's saying that that's them sort of lying by omission, because they can do a transfection through different species, and basically you accelerate the process and you have nature do your work. There's no need to so when people are so this is what people need to be aware of when in that press conference, because they ask, is it man-made? And Fauci stands there and says, well, we've got a paper that says no from a very respected group of scientists.
Yeah, you're not answering the question.
Well, so the question says that it looks like it's completely natural zoonosis in terms of the mutation rate and what they would expect. And
but you couldn't make it to look like that.
No,
right? Is that what you're saying?
So you could accelerate the process by feeding it back into host organisms, right? So instead of using something like CRISPR, where you would snip out sections of the genome and then put in genes that you wanted to, right, and try and have a guess as to what it would do to the agent itself. Right. You say, okay, we know that this bat SARS causes a pneumonia type condition. So you start with that premise 18 years ago, okay, and then you start from there, and then you passage it into experimental animals. And in China, they've got an abundance of pigs and they've got an abundance of monkeys that they could begin to do that, right? And so so you do that, you get an animal, you transfect an animal so that it becomes poorly, and then you then feed it back to the pigs, right? And then it's sort of, and you keep reinfecting, and you'll keep engineering. You'll have nature engineer the virus for you, or you could potentially do more targeted stuff with the technologies, if you like. So you'd have all these things going at once. That's how I would do it if I was in charge, and I'd been, my responsibility was to get to a thorough understanding of what that agent is, because in this respect, science would be blind if the go ahead has been given that it's a vital thing to do. Then as a scientist, you go ahead and you do it, and you explore all the ways to get it to do what it is that you want. And what they want to do right now is to understand how that how the pneumonia comes about, and suddenly what we're finding is what were very small cases in the at the beginning. So there were papers that sort of pointed to the fact that there might be a sort of neurotrophic agent, which is what caught my interest. And there's papers about the original SARS which show that it affects T cells. All these things need to be taken into account, because you have to understand where the bats were, Guangdong province, and
Guangdong.
Guangdong. The local university there probably would have had a lot to do with the first analysis of this bat virus. Okay, and so as I remember the story, a farmer presents as ill with flu-like symptoms, and then they basically take samples from that individual. Okay, you take it to something, so you begin the culture of it like you do a bacteria. Okay, so you take your samples whilst he's still sort of ill, and then you start culturing, and then you start looking to see if you see any emergent viruses that you can identify. Okay, and then as you've done that and you identify an agent, then you try to sort of confirm Koch's postulates, which is you take an agent from an ill person, you passage it through, or you culture it, you passage it through a animal model. Choose because it's virtually endless what you could choose, right? And you can just do stuff on a petri dish as well. You don't have to put it into an organism to begin with. Okay, and then as you begin the process of isolation, you then put it into other animals or other subjects, say, and we don't want to put it into humans. So the closest thing would be a pig or a monkey, right? That those animals have the closest physiology and have the best chance to
They have the most similar physiology to humans.
Yes, yeah, and so everyone's now familiar with the ACE2 receptor on the SARS virus. It also
and the
has
upregulation of it.
Yeah, and it also has a couple of other spike proteins. If people are interested, go watch. So Paul's very good at sort of covering that sort of aspect. I mean, what I can speak to is how the machinery works with respect to NIH, and
we also discussed it on my channel as well in the first collaboration I did with Dr. Cottrell. Additionally, when he was on Stefan Molyneux's show, I tuned in. Paul texted me and I asked a question, and basically setting up Paul for an ACE2 receptor explanation as far as it just not being in the lungs. So people can check that out as well.
So ACE2, it's short for angiotensin converting enzyme 2. And it's involved in a lot of homeostatic mechanisms, and particularly sort of contraction or relaxation of blood vessel walls. And you find it from the bladder to the kidneys to the lungs to the brain. And the reason that I got into this was because as I watched people being or supposed patients coming down with it in China, it was very obvious to me that there was a neural component to the virus. And I had a sort of cursory knowledge of there being this element to SARS. I know there are a number of different neurotrophic viruses. Most, the one everyone knows about is rabies. And we use rabies in the lab because it's a good tracer for neural networks. Okay, but even rabies, the handling of it can be done in a BSL2 laboratory, so long as you're just using it as the vector for a tracing, okay, you can and you're not culturing it, and you're not tweaking it to make it sort of better or worse at spreading through the body, then you're yeah, like I say, a P2 laboratory. Most universities will have a P2 laboratory, right? And BSL-3 is usually the more extreme end, and then a BSL-4 is basically a weapons grade facility, right? So that means specific gain of function research, okay? And you know, we have to assume right now that the intention, whatever. So when you do a grant, right? This I'll sort of give some insight into how the process works. Often you've almost done a lot of the work, right? When you apply for a grant, right? So you'll have backing up data that you've already done, that you say, look, we've done this, and then this is our preliminary data. If you fund us, we will then do X, Y, and Z. And you know, if you stack everything right, you're sort of always funded, and you're rolling on, and you've always got something coming in the pipeline that will sort of come back to you and stabilize you as a lab, and then that grows you, and that brings a lot of prestige. And the Chinese, what do they want? They want to win the ideological war, which is to say that, you know, this is their system, look how good it works. And they want a supremacy of their, well, it's not communism anymore per se. It's a sort of funny mix of state control. In a classic definition, you could say it's a type of fascism, I suppose. So it's state the state runs the industry, and the Politburo, or the, you know, the
bureaucracy,
the patriarchs of the party itself, they run all the industries, right?
yeah.
And the idea of communism, as I understand it, is that, you know, it's supposed to be, you know, more sort of egalitarian with respect to that. Whereas fascism,
it is, but I mean, you could say the same thing about communist Russia too. And that's the thing, is like, I don't really see much of a difference between that and what, I mean, the end result is the same in the fact that lots of people die, millions of people. But I mean, there are differences. Like, I mean, the Nazis, I don't think they let females fight, whereas the Russians did. So there's that difference. But I mean, you do wind up with the same end result, and it's very similar with, you know, the Soviet Union and communist Russia. Is, yeah, it's supposed to be no property for anybody and all this, and equality, but you have a very small group of people that essentially control the rest.
Yeah. You know, it swings and roundabouts with which to which, you know, you can say the same for us, right? We have a sort of oligarch type system where we let the captains of industry decide policy.
I was watching this guy that I was telling you about earlier, Doc, and he has basically made the claim that war has become its own resource.
Yeah, of course.
Like, it's crazy to think about. It's like a living, breathing, like, it's not human almost, you know? Like, it's a metaphysical force, it seems.
And you can take a very strong argument that is the case if you want to look at it metaphysically, and that would be, it's one of your horsemen, right? And we play with it at our peril. And, you know, you don't have to go far back in our history to where they were warning us about the military-industrial complex. And
yeah, Eisenhower did.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Kennedy was doing the same, and then they blew his head off, right? So, you know, yes, it makes money for people, and that's something that we have to keep a constant vigilant eye on. But then, in the antipode position to that is that, well, you know, we do need a military because if you don't have one, people like China will just storm straight in. Okay, we've let them in via the Trojan horse of trade, but the fact that they've undercut the West and the West lifestyle, where they've gutted the middle class to the extent that we as a country are no longer able to support our own. And then what we've done is we've incentivized it. We've incentivized it to the point that we would have people who who would literally offshore stuff to China, right? So that they can scrape the extra penny on the dollar, bump up the share price, they get a percentage increase, and then they pull the ripcord on their golden parachute and float gently down, while the rest of the people are stuck with, trying to fight over crumbs. And to be in this day and age where we are we're blessed with an abundance of materials and technologies, and people are still, and people can't make a standard living where, if you want to, you should be able to have a one wage earning house, right? So someone goes out to work and someone's there to look after children, right? And instead we've let this machine get out of control to the point where we've let debt run rampant. And so that's another metaphysical force that's running away with everything right now. And couple that with the military industrial complex, couple that with the biomedical science complex as well. And it all becomes a very nasty witch's brew. And like I say, the only reason I'm able to speak to it is because I was luckily able to sort of navigate through without compromising my ideals too much, with respect to how I went about my science. But I do know people that's all they thought about was money, and they're looking to get specific targets. So a lot of biochemistry right now, all they're doing is they're looking to and genetics is they're looking for like the tweaks now. So they've got like the base molecules. So a good example to use right now, and this is why I'm trying to warn people that don't just think hydroxychloroquine is the be all end all answer that they're going to think about, right? They'll use the same tactics that they have with vaccines to scare you or push you into a situation where you're obliged to either take the drugs, the vaccine, or test positive for an antibody in order to engage in your business, right?
Yeah, prove your innocence in some way.
Yeah,
so to
yeah,
speak.
and that's not the Burgle in the chat. He's a machine. He's found the R01 grant, and but this time, Burgle, just talking to chat, we beat you to it. I have to get a victory in somewhere against him, because he's always he's always beating me and overloading me with grants. So let me just prove to Burgle that we did it without him this time. And,
That's one of your guys that
yeah in the Discord, the guy's a machine. And
isn't that great though? I think that's one good thing about this pandemic is it's bringing people together in a way that it never would have otherwise. Like I would not be talking to you right now, Kevin, and I do feel fortunate that I get to talk to you and learn from you.
But yeah, and I'm very glad to be able to speak and meet all these people that I have done doing this, because what was I doing? Because of my personal circumstances, I was just sitting there, just watching stuff, and and I'd sort of felt like I'd done my bit, if you like. I can't put it
Sure, yeah.
And I let the rest of the world sort of find their way through it, and now suddenly the good Lord finds another thing for me to do, and it seems to have revolved around this. And Pharmacy Seeds, how are you doing? I see a lot of people just sort of trying to catch my attention, and I just apologize to people. I'm not really looking in the Discord right now because I just want to keep us on target with respect to the major issues right now. So we still haven't got to Donald Trump. So you need to find a bit on there. Get past the 5G doctor, right? So everyone needs to be aware of these types of people. And get to more of the press conference.
You guys have.
Oh, give me a sec. Got Fauci up here.
And so we need to get the raw feed of this press conference from today, and we need to be passing it out. And I want to see if Mike Milley comes up and speaks. That I think is a critical thing to be looking at.
There is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak.
When someone's
All right, don't let 5G man run away with it. Look, this is what I've been trying to tell to people, right? These people have got things planned out months to years ahead, right? In this game, right? I guess you could call it a game for want of a better word. And he's looking to get to the end. And look, Fauci doesn't need money, right? And his thing is he looks a very small man, right? And he's probably addicted to the power that he has in the department that he has, and this ability to be a kingmaker, right? And
he's a pretty small guy.
Oh yeah, so you need to sort of Burgle. If you want a mission, dude, you can find. Oh, he's already done it. He's a machine. Let's say. Let's.
In the meantime, I'm gonna play this, Kev.
Okay.
These suggestions or concerns that this virus was somehow man-made, possibly came out of a laboratory in China. When you studied this virus, what are the prospects of that?
Yeah. There was a study recently that we can make available to you where a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looked at the sequences there and the sequences in bats as they evolve, and the mutations that it took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to a human. So I mean, the paper will be available. I don't have the authors right now, but we can make that available to you.
So he's...
Oh.
Did you... So that's the paper where they're talking about the furan cleavage, I think, in the ACE2 receptor. And again, it doesn't, just because they're saying it doesn't look like it's been lab manipulated by something like CRISPR, you could have done it in monkeys or pigs. And, pigs have many litters of piglets per round, right? And you just keep recycling that infective agent through them, and then you just keep testing for it and seeing what emerges. And it might just be that they came, nature worked with them in this case and pulled out this particular little beauty. And who knows what's gone on behind the scenes. And it might not even be China. It could be other groups that are trying to cause some degree of chaos. And all those things wouldn't surprise me. And like I say, there's enough camouflage with the military games occurring in September that you could have got people into Wuhan and around. That it's in the middle of the city, the facility, which is another massive stupid blunder on their part. Primate institutes need to be, or anything doing like that with its primates or gain of function research needs to be isolated out in the countryside, pretty much like my institute. I mean, I'm not there right now, but we were obviously the city has built up a little bit around it, but when it was first established, it was sort of right at the end of the train line, right? And because there's this understanding that Dr. Kaufman interview today. I mean, we can have a look at Kaufman splatters, but Kaufman is a non-issue right now. Now that the chess pieces are moving in such a way that we can begin to see who's moving for cover. And if people can sort of, because I'm trying to chat and do a lot of things, and if they can scan the press meeting today where Fauci comes up and the question is given, and we can look at the raw press conference, because Bergel, the one I'm seeing you've given me, I don't see Fauci in it, and I don't know if there was another one. I mean,
Yeah, I'm gonna play this in the meanwhile, Kev.
Yeah, go ahead and
Let me mute you. Oh.
Away a lot of money. We give away for years, for many years, they give away a lot of money. And some people complain and some people don't. Some people are extremely happy. So we're looking into that also. They're giving away approximately, as I understand it, recently more than $32 billion a year. 32 billion. And so we've been looking at that for a while, and we're going to be having some statements to be made about that. $32 billion a year. It's a lot of money, and we want to make sure it's being spent wisely. And we've been doing that, by the way. And we'll have some statements on that. And those are much bigger numbers than what we're talking about with national. If you look at with our friends from wherever they come from, 500 million is a lot of money, but it's not a lot compared to the kind of money that we give out. I think over the years, it's been averaging about $32 billion. 32 billion. So we've had our eye on that one for a while. We also talked about the lab in China, where I guess 3.7 million was given some time ago. And we're looking at that very closely. Chief of Staff has that pretty much under control. But it's money that, too bad it got spent there. But that was spent, what year was that, Mark? It was 4 or 5 years ago. 6 years ago, approximately. So we're looking at that.
Wow. Here, let me. Okay, you're good. You're good, Kev. So Mark Milley, that's his name.
Yeah. So I would just find if Mark Milley was up on the stand today, and we need to sort of unpack that and find out where it's going from here. And like I say, if you want sort of to be a citizen journalist right now in the United States, someone needs to go down to Eco Health Alliance to make sure they're not shredding everything, because that's what will happen. Eco Health is the intermediary between Fauci and the Wuhan lab. Okay, so all the receipts are there, and they must be able to account for every penny. Okay, even on my piddly grants that I survived on, right, I had to make sure I accounted for everything. Okay, and I think what you'll find is that probably in the there's a program called 10,000 Minds, I think, the Chinese program, they've probably matched US funding, right, and find out who was going backwards and forwards between the two. So I saw earlier that one of the fact checkers for Facebook was a doctor who had been in the Wuhan laboratory, okay, and was basically covering for them during the as this story was breaking. Okay, we need to find that woman. And like I've got so much stuff coming through, I need to sort of tag it more, but I'm sure if we Google for that, she'll come up.
Let's
Like I said,
definitely do that, Kevin. And as I said before, guys, I am gonna be on Doc Quattrell's show later this evening. I guess it'll be tomorrow, early tomorrow morning for you guys, in terms of it being actually published and available. So we are nearing up on about 90 minutes here, Kev. So let's
okay.
try to shoot for 1:30 if that's cool with you. And let's definitely do this again this week. I was just doing research when you texted me, and I'm glad you did. So we got a chance to talk today.
And I would, well, I don't know. Did we get through that clip?
Which clip was this?
Just like Donald Trump, if he'd finished at the end where he's asking
Oh
Mike
yeah,
Miley.
he finished. Yeah, I
he
looked at the
finished.
rest. I couldn't find any more. It's just dude commentating. But
Okay.
yeah, I'll if I find the whole clip on YouTube, I'll definitely save it, and we can discuss it next time as well, as well as that woman from Facebook.
Yeah, so that's all that needs chasing down. People need to be looking into the NPO as well, and
EcoHealth.
Yeah, and don't let them get away right now. And if everyone starts going off about vaccines and 5G and all their stupid stuff, like, you know, when when the president is talking about, you know, they're giving out, I don't know what absurd number, like $36 billion, right, in outside grants, right, that are potentially sketchy and could be going to places like
32 billion, I think he said.
Yeah. So you know, let's hope he's got the common sense to say, get the people's support behind him, so that there's a protection for their wages, so no one's being evicted, no one's going hungry. And at this very, very unique time, we clear house of all these individuals that are basically shafting us, right? We're the ones at the bottom that's having to eat all this crap falling down from their table. So I would encourage people right now to don't put this on Trump's doorstep. It's not him. He's actually doing a very good job with how things could be done, and we should be doing the legwork for them, right? So remember, it's a stupid, dumb bureaucracy that's gonna hide stuff and put things in and try to skew things towards a left or right paradigm that's so prevalent in the United States. And if we do that, then they'll get away with it, and then we'll be back to square one. And right now, we've got a chance. You know, they've taken their swing. We should see how the things sort of settle down, and now go after the opportunity to make sure that they can't, you know, they can't cause more damage. I think
Yeah, I think it's important to understand, just dovetailing on what you just said, Kevin, that there is no one antagonist or no one person who is responsible. So people shouldn't try to make, because I think that's what may happen, is some sort of scapegoat will be offered or something.
Yeah, just keep your eye on China. China's more than prepared to weld millions of people into their apartments to get the job done. Right? They will not flinch for a second to get what they think needs to be done to protect their interests right now. And if we're suddenly infighting because we think we've got a political issue to get at the orange man bad, or the, you know, the converse being the non-compliance people, okay, who just want to sort of break a quarantine with respect to, and you know, I think Trump's doing it right for sort of like staged reopening, okay.
Yeah,
and
kind of pumping the brakes.
Yeah, and well, you know, this is a long conversation with respect to, you know, how we get our supply lines back under control, because we've lost control of those things. And let it not be forgot that there's enough wealth in the world that all those at the bottom could be looked after. I know there's lots of people that want to get back to work and they don't care about their government bucks. right? And they do want to get back to work. But you know what? There's a whole bunch of people as well that are Americans that shouldn't be the carcasses just tossed aside by the vulture capitalism that led us down this path in the first place. So let's take out the commies. Let's just take out the oligarchs, and let's start clearing house from top to bottom. That would be my advice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has put it better so far, Doc.
No, thank you
So
very
on
much.
that note, we are going to wrap up this live broadcast. Thank you everyone for tuning in all over the world, and stay tuned on both mine and Doc Kevin Mccairn's channels as well. We will be chatting again at some point this week, in addition, of course, to our roundtable next weekend. Dr. Mccairn, thank you so much for chatting.
Yep. Thank you very much. Take care.